Hi, it's Pat. So I've been out on the campaign trail, and it seems that as the days keep getting longer, my to-do list seems to be growing even faster. Um, but I think I've shared with many of you that I did not enter this race lightly. I didn't take the decision to run lightly. And in fact, I'm really troubled by the polarization and bitterness, the caustic nature of our civic discourse. I've been involved in public service for over 20 years now, and I don't have any ambition to climb up the ladder to state or federal office. And I had other opportunities that I was looking at. I had just received my master's. I've been doing a little substitute teaching. Obviously, I could have continued in the family business. But as I reflected on family business, I realized that, at the true core of my family business is service. And, my dad was a colonel in the United States Air Force before he was killed in the line of duty while I was still a young boy. His dad was city manager of Chico for 20 years. And my other grandfather was on the school board in Elk Grove for about 20 years and was also president of the local Rotary Club, the same Rotary Club that actually I would go on to be president of almost 50 years later. And so I realized that turning away just because it seemed hard didn't comport with my values and or the legacy that my family left for me. And so I knew that I could not leave the future of our community to chance. And it would be hard and I'd have to make sacrifices, but I decided that's why I was going to step up and run for the Board of Supervisors. And this is an old dilemma, right? Yesterday marked the 248th anniversary of Patrick Henry, another person named Patrick, struggling with a big decision to get involved. And it was on March 23rd, 1775, in a small church in Richmond. A band of leaders met to talk about the future of their community. And they were bound together by the unconventional idea that all men were created equal and that thoughtful citizens could govern themselves. It's hard to imagine, but back then, that idea, that sense of government by the people for the people was nowhere else on earth. It had never been tried, it had never been imagined. And today, we take the idea of liberty sometimes for granted. But so during that meeting, some people advocated against independence. They thought the struggle was going to be too hard and the risks were too high, and in fact, they would be tried and killed for treason if they weren't successful. And that's when Patrick Henry famously said, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." These were not just words. They were fighting for liberty. They were putting their lives on the line because they, as I say, could have been killed for treason. And they were trying to break free from and form independence from what was then the most powerful nation on the planet. And now, here 250 almost years later, on the other side of the ocean, we see a country with that same fierce longing for liberty and willingness to risk it all. Ukrainians bravely fighting to preserve their freedom from the tyrant Vladimir Putin. Everyone would have understood if they had chosen to flee, and many did, obviously, to save their lives. But many stood and fought, and one of those people who stood and fought was Vladimir Zelensky, who decided he was going to stand shoulder to shoulder with his countrymen and say, "This doesn't happen on my watch. I'm not running. I will stay here and fight." And he points to American history himself, and the idea that we were founded on the ideas of democracy, independence, freedom, and that we in Ukraine want the same for our people. All that is a normal part of your own life. He says we would understand Ukrainians. Understand us now. I'm almost 45 years old. Today my age stopped when the hearts of more than 100 children stopped beating. I see no sense in life if it cannot stop the deaths. This is my mission as a leader of my people and as a leader of my nation. When we look at these poignant words and actions of patriots who stood up for something, for enduring principles of liberty and justice and fairness and inspiration. We don't have a war to face. We're not facing imminent invasion from a tyrant, but democracy does not flourish in darkness. It cannot bloom without our involvement. When Reagan was elected governor of California, he said, "Perhaps you and I have lived too long with this miracle to be properly appreciative. Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again." We're not facing a movie villain or any other tangible enemy. I believe our enemies are polarization, division, and apathy. Polarization and partisanship, they're poison to democracy. The politics of disdain robs our system of the ability to communicate, to deliberate about big ideas, let alone try and solve things. And so a friend of mine recently introduced me to Braver Angels. This is a citizen-led effort to try and reduce polarization in our civic and political dialogue. They draw their name from Lincoln's call for us to rely upon the better angels of our nature, and then they changed it to be Braver Angels. I was skeptical at first. It seemed like too big and too hard of an issue to tackle, of breaking down the divisions between us. But the Braver Angel people, just like those others that I mentioned, they're stepping up and fighting for liberty and for freedom and for this great experiment that we are constantly evolving. So then I led me to hosting a Braver Angels Red-Blue workshop where we brought Republicans and Democrats together and tried to break down the stereotypes, what they think about us and what we say about them, and really break it down to what we have in common rather than our divisions. And this was important because I don't really like politics. I do like finding ways of solving issues and bringing people together and forging solutions to make our lives better. And I want to help break down these labels that we want to apply to others, so that way we can truly see one another. That's public service. That's the legacy that I learned from my family. It's what I want to leave for the next generation, and that's why my campaign tries not to focus on politics, but to focus on solutions to real problems. So hopefully we can end the bitterness of politics and focus on the better angels of our nature. Have a good night.